Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, the 40s from the past few weeks and now a memory buried under at least a half a foot of fresh snow.
Yeah, from drivers sliding on city roadways to homeowners just looking to find their driveways again. This morning's snow was a surprise for a lot of people.
A sudden reminder of our season left roadways slippery and drivers struggling.
This morning, Billings police issued a warning for people to avoid the roads if they could. Officers on the roads reported icy conditions, including this area of Broadwater Avenue between 10th and 12th Streets West. That icy hill proving difficult for many vehicles to navigate. Now, city plows were out in force as well as contracted plows. Those residential plows started in the Billings Heights around 10 a.m. this morning, and they'll continue to work in a clockwise rotation throughout the city.
Meanwhile, as others work to carve through the buried roadways, others work to find ground at their own homes. Sidewalks echoed with the sounds of scraping shovels and revving snow blowers working to clear the quickly falling snow. And for some, it was a process that had to be repeated multiple times throughout the day.
All right, Bob's here to tell us more. Bob went to bed last night not even thinking about snow and went to let the dogs out this morning, and bit of a surprise.
That was the question on everybody's mind. What's the deal with all the snow? Well, let's go to the Doppler radar and we can show you what happens. This is we go back to about 11:30 p.m. late last night. You can see the snow kind of all around us then. And then all of a sudden this stuff starts coming up from the southwest. And then before you know it, we're starting to see some scattered snow showers making its way into the Billings area. Now this whole wave continued to push its way into the Billings area. Then some stuff from Lewistown started moving in and combined with the snow that hit Billings. And all that started dropping to the south. And as it did so, it started running into a bunch of other snowstorms that are down around Wyoming and also into parts of the Dakota. So the storm just ran into some like big linebackers and it just stopped right where it's at. Now, how much snow have we received so far? Well, so far we've had about 8.8 inches at Red Lodge, about 3 miles north of there. 3 miles northeast of Billings near the Heights, 7 inches southeast of Billings. At the Billings Airport had 6 inches. Laurel had about 5.5 inches. And now a special treat for us tonight. We get to welcome back a familiar face to the Q2 weather team. It's albeit maybe a fuzzy face. It's Rob Griggs, and he said he wanted to be in the weather. Well, we put him out in the weather. And Rob, where are you?
Yeah, Bob, when I played rock, paper, scissors with you earlier, I didn't realize you were going to cheat and get me out here. But yeah, we're out here on 4th Avenue North, and we're right at the intersection of 4th and Main Street heading into the Heights. And right now, traffic is still moving pretty good. It's slow, but we've noticed across town that that heavy wet snow that you talked about that we got in the city has compressed and packed down, and there's a sheen of water on top of it. So cars are slipping and sliding even before the intersections. The city police are still on the slippery streets policy, so exchange cards on a fender bender. If there's no injury, then continue on your way, and you can call in the report later on. This is going to freeze tonight. It's very slippery around the city right now, as you know, but by tomorrow morning, the commute will be dangerously slippery as all of these wet streets, for the time being, will be iced over. And we could tell if you don't have to be out here traveling around on the streets, you certainly shouldn't be on the streets right now. Russ, Jeanelle?
Rob, it's great to see you back on the air here at Q2. Welcome back. You always seem to get the best assignments, of course. You've obviously hit the ground running, or is it sliding out there?
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking my time, moving as slow as possible. We don't want to break the new weatherman this early into the game.
No, we don't.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Well, the slick roads making travel difficult for those in our area and causing some changes to school schedules tomorrow.
Q2's Samantha Sullivan joining us now from the newsroom with a look. Sammy?
All right, well, Russ and Jeanelle, I spoke with the folks at the Department of Transportation a little earlier today, and they say it's been a busy day as we've been mentioning the slick roads, making them ask drivers to be a little extra cautious while they're out driving. This is a look from the MDT cam at the Lockwood interchange in Billings. As you can see, the area of I-90 that goes through Billings is mostly just slush at this point, but once you get out of the area, it's a different story. This is the Bull Mountain cam on the way up north towards Roundup. The department says once you get outside of Billings, especially to the east, north, all the way up towards Lewistown, the roads are covered with snow and ice, and you can of course check the MDT road maps There aren't any truly clear roads in any direction for miles at this point. Now, because of this, we have learned of a few school changes due to weather conditions. The Lodgegrass schools will have a late start tomorrow, and Billings Public Schools will use alternate bus routes. For a full list of those routes, you can head to our website. And Superintendent Greg Upham reminding parents and students tonight that buses could be running a little late tomorrow due to the weather. He also mentions for people to stand about 10 steps away from the bus stops right now, as they need a little extra room to stop when it's this slick out. His main message, though, tonight, just using a little bit of extra caution come morning time. Russ and Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Sammy.
A violent offender with a known history of crime and warrants out for his arrest.
That's how Billings Police Chief Rich St. John described the man who exchanged gunfire with police and was eventually shot and killed by officers. Tonight, we are learning more about 26-year-old Chance Mavity of Shepherd. At a morning news conference, St. John said the man had access to firearms and was willing to shoot out with police. The ordeal happened Sunday afternoon when officers were called to a pawn shop on 1st Avenue North here in Billings, where 3 individuals were attempting to sell stolen guns.
When officers arrived, Mavity took off on foot. Police say he did not comply with the officers' orders to stop and instead raised a handgun and fired. The shootout ended with officers firing 19 rounds, killing Mavity there on the scene.
There is an officer caution alert, which goes out with our officers every day in briefing. Those admonitions that he was possibly armed and intending to shoot it out.
Mavity does have a lengthy criminal history, according to St. John, with warrants out of Missoula County and a criminal past in Carbon County.
Once the investigation wraps up, the case will head to the Yellowstone County Attorney's Office for a coroner's inquest.
Montana State Senator says control over how to manage grizzly bear populations should be something the state does, not the federal government. And he's asking Montana's congressional delegation to take action. Republican Senator Mike Cuff from Eureka is proposing a legislative resolution to urge lawmakers in Washington, D.C. to pass legislation to delist the grizzly bear. That measure would also encourage Montana's congressional delegation to do the work to make it happen. Cuff believes grizzly bear populations have recovered enough after spending 8 years on the endangered species list. Still, he says a delisting does not necessarily mean no protections for grizzly bears at all.
Many protective measures continue in place. Federal agencies like U.S. Forest Service have already been studying continuing regulations for grizzly bear protection. This is not a removal of everything.
But there is another factor in this piece of legislation, the right to hunt grizzly bears. Cuff says if passed, that decision would be up to state wildlife agencies, again giving control back to the state to manage.
As people and organizations remember and commemorate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, one Montanan who is also a Northern Cheyenne tribal member is also taking today to reflect on the weekend's national events. At promptly 10 a.m. this morning, those with MSU Billings rang a commemorative bell as part of MLK events. Then Speaker Walter Runsabove said a Native American prayer in honor of the civil rights movement. Runsabove said the work of King is important, especially on the heels of the Indigenous Peoples March at the National Mall in D.C., where a Vietnam vet clashed with Catholic high school students. Students were seen on video shouting, "Build the wall." Runsabove said the only way to balance the hate in this world is with love, just like King's dream movement.
A lot of people blew up my phone and it was like, man, did you see what was going on? And I didn't react in a negative way, because when you react in a negative way, then you're feeding the negative side of it, and you're going to make it grow.
Now, today's Martin Luther King Jr. event is part of a week-long series of events at MSU Billings. Along with the bell ringing ceremony, there's also a suicide seminar on Wednesday.
Coming up on tonight's 5:30 News, this new ride at the Billings Airport is ready for takeoff, but it's never leaving the ground. In fact, its main goal, to keep the ground clear.
And later in sports, some of Pro Rodeo's best ever will be in Billings this weekend, inducted to Montana's Hall of Fame. Scott chats with featured guest Donnie Gay.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.